In the last section, we defined a custom ToString function on our deck class. So now anytime we try to print out an instance of a deck, this function gets executed. Right now, we are returning a silly string. It would be a lot better if we could somehow return our list of cards, so this cards property right here, so we could verify that the correct number and suit and rank of all those cards are being created. So maybe one way to do this would be to do something like, I don't know, let's just try returning that list of cards. Let's just see what happens if we do this. Well, when I put cards in here, you'll notice I very quickly get an error message. So the return type, list of cards, isn't a string. So when we call or when we define this ToString method, the expectation is that we're going to return a string from it, and that string should be able to be used to represent this object. So we can't just return any type of value that we want from this ToString function. We have to specifically return a string. So we need to somehow turn this list of cards right here into a string. One way that we could do that is by using a built-in function on the list object. So whenever we create an instance of a list, as we are like right here, whenever we create this list right here, this array or this list has a bunch of functions tied to it. We already used one function that was tied to it. We used the add function inside of our constructor. The list right here has another function tied to it called, as you might guess, ToString. So every list that we make use of inside of Dart has an automatically created ToString function that has been customized to properly print out a list. So inside of our ToString function, we're going to kind of delegate the printing of this object. And we're going to say, you know what? I don't know how to print out a deck. Let's just return the cards list version of ToString instead. So now when we call ToString on the list of cards, this right here is going to return a string representation of that list of cards, and then you and I are going to return that from our ToString. And so we're kind of setting up a little bit of delegation here. So anytime that we call print on a deck, it's going to call our ToString, and we are going to delegate the printing to the ToString function that belongs to the list of cards. Okay, let's try running this and then seeing what happens. Okay, so I'll click on run. And now over here, you'll notice that I see what looks like a list. I see like a whole bunch of records, but what actually gets printed up is instance of card over and over and over again. Okay, well, you might be able to guess what's going on now. So we've returned a representation of that list of cards. However, when we call ToString on the list of cards, that in turn calls ToString on our card class as well. And so we get this huge chain of delegation of like the very top level ToString gets called. That calls the cards ToString, and then the cards ToString in turn calls ToString on the card class as well. And so that's why we're seeing this instance of card. So to fix this up, we can now define a ToString function on the card class itself. And from there, we can return a string representation of the card. So let's try doing that now. Inside the card class, I'll add ToString. And then inside of here, I'll return a string. And we'll try printing out something like, I don't know, let's do something that kind of makes sense here. We'll do rank of suit, like so. Remember that anytime we use a $sign inside of a string, that is string interpolation. And so this string right here is going to look at the rank property of the card instance and the suit property of the card instance. And it's going to insert them into this string. All right, so let's try running this now. So I'll run that, and now I see printed up. Much better. So we've got ace of diamonds, 2 of diamonds, 3 of diamonds, and so on. Okay, so I know that this ToString stuff is a little bit strange, but essentially what's going on is that anytime we want to print up an instance of a class, if we want to have some customized message there, we can simply define the ToString function and then return our own kind of custom message about what's going on with this particular record. Okay, so this looks pretty good. Let's continue in the next section.